Thanks for tuning in to the 6Three podcast. I'm your host, Joel, with co-host Ben today.
Yeah,
Isaiah got caught up somewhere else, so
yeah.
we'll make it. We'll survive.
I think we'll be okay.
There will be a show.
It will.
We wanted to kick off NFL playoff scenarios because we did the halfway point awards last week. Missed time to talk about the playoff picture, but I feel like it's becoming a little more vivid, just giving us that one more week. So,
Yeah.
what obviously we have like the standard expanded playoffs now, and potentially again there's talk now about expanding playoffs if there are cancellations,
Yeah,
basically.
more COVID problems, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they approved a proposal basically that will expand the playoff teams to 8 in each conference if and only if games get canceled this season.
Yeah.
So yeah, as of now there's 7 for the first time, so potentially it could be 8. And let's just let everyone in. March Madness
Yeah,
style.
I mean, then the Lions can make the playoffs again, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, March Madness style, 116.
Let them all in. Why not? But no, I just think, I mean, it makes sense. They wanted to expand it. I think a lot of professional organizations are going to that right now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the MLB sticks with some form of expanded playoff from here on out. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of it necessarily, just because I don't like that teams that really aren't good and didn't prove anything during the
Are
regular
getting rewarded.
season can make it. Yeah, you can't reward a team that's 500, and that very easily could happen in the NFL this year. Every once in a while, you know, it's going to happen anyway, just because you've got a really weak division or something like that. But you can't. You're rewarding mediocrity at that point, and I don't think that's the spirit of the playoffs at that point. So
Yeah, I mean, it's
we'll
probably
see.
going to happen this year with the NFC East. And then
Sure.
obviously you remember when the Seahawks in the NFC West made it at 7-9, and then those blind squirrels found a couple nuts, and they ran. Marshawn Lynch had that historical long run where he beast moded through everybody, and
Yep.
I think they won a couple games that year despite being 7-9. So.
Yeah, and those stories are cool to see the team that no one thought would make it because they were not as good in the regular season. But I think it just takes value away from the games in the regular season when you expand something like that. And if you're letting half the teams in, it's just kind of dumb. So.
Yeah, so right now in the NFC, the Saints are still the 1 seed, and this is kind of based off tiebreakers and head-to-heads and stuff. But Saints 6-2, Seahawks 6-2, Packers are 6-2, and those are the top 3 there. And then you got the Eagles that have to make that 4th spot at 3-4-1, while you have the 3 wild card teams with the Bucks at 6-3, and the Cardinals and Rams in the NFC West at 5-3, which leaves the 49ers actually still in the hunt, being the last NFC West team, and they're 4-5 despite all those injuries, and the Bears are 5-4.
Yeah.
The NFC. Not to me, the NFC looks a little weaker right now than the AFC. That's
I
what
agree. I think there's a potential for 3 very good teams coming out of the NFC. The Saints showed out really well last game, obviously. I still think the Bucks are still going to be tough out, and I do think the Packers are going to be tough just because. Explosive offense. The Seahawks as well. Those would probably be the 4 teams that I would put up there. So I think probably 3 of them will still be what I would consider like elite. But yeah, they are definitely we'll talk about the AFC, but I think they're a little bit of a step down. The bottom of that, the teams that are either still in the hunt or just squeaking in. I mean, you have the Eagles there. Like they're not a good football team, and they have to be in. So
yeah.
When you have the NFC East the way it is, that's what happens.
So any of those wild card teams, you think, like you said, you already said the Bucks are a tough out, so they could do some damage.
The Bucks are tough.
The Cardinals have pulled out some upsets.
The Cardinals would be a team I wouldn't want to see in the playoffs just because play a little bit of different style on both sides of the ball. Kyler Murray can take over a game.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean they've got weapons, better weapons than even some of those upper echelon teams, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively they're maybe not quite up to par there, but offensively they can definitely win a game by themselves. So they'd be a tough out. And then like I said, the Bucks, they obviously played really poorly this last game, but Saints are kind of on a roll now. So we'll see. I mean, definitely, I think those two and the wild card definitely have a chance. But I would probably put those top four above anybody there.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, we've seen the Bears just hit a fallout.
Hmm.
And I think we talk about how the Rams, we really don't believe they're that talented, but they're the blind squirrels that have found a couple nuts again, or a broken clock that's right twice a day, whatever.
It can certainly happen where a team like the Bears or a team like the Rams, who the Rams defense has been better than we all thought they'd be. Obviously, Aaron Donald, we knew he'd be special, but they've been better. And the Bears' defense is still really good. I mean, obviously, their offense is the reason why they can't win any games seemingly right now. But if they get anything out of their offense, they're going to be tough to beat too. So, I mean, any of these teams that could make the playoffs are definitely going to be a tough out. I don't think there's any easy games in the playoffs. But you look at it from top to bottom, AFC versus NFC. I would give the edge to the AFC.
Yeah,
for sure.
and we're looking at that here. The Steelers are 8-0. The Chiefs are 8-1. The Bills have been really good this year at 7-2, and then you have the Titans and the Ravens at 6-2. So that's literally, you have 5 teams right there that have the same or better record than the top 3 teams in the NFC there.
Well, those 5 teams, I literally, looking at them right now, I would not be surprised if any of those 5 teams were in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. as we sit there right now. There's probably 2 of them that I would maybe put ahead of the others, but those 5 teams I think are probably better than, like I said, any of the NFC teams, and that just kind of goes to show what the difference is this year. So
yeah, and even the bottom 4, including the 2 in the hunt, but like Raiders and Dolphins 5-3,
yeah,
and then the Browns and Colts also 5-3. So yeah.
I mean, Colts best defense in football, and they're 5-3, and they're right. They're towards the bottom of the AFC. If Colts played in the NFC, they'd be probably best team in the NFC, possibly. I mean, they'd be right up there, top 2 or 3.
I give a lot of credit to Brian Flores. I mean, obviously, I was very high on him for Coach of the Year, and Dolphins at 5-3. Who would have ever thunk it?
He somehow gets them the playoffs. I mean, I think he's a shoo-in to win the award. But yeah, I mean, they've been way better than I expected them to be. I thought they would be better than they were last year. I mean, there's no way they could be as bad as they were last year, but I didn't expect them to be this good. So yeah, I mean, AFC's tough. I'm probably still picking the Chiefs. That team's just, I don't know. There's something about the Chiefs. Obviously the offense is crazy, but I just feel like they've been there before too. I mean, I know some of these other teams have been there too. I guess they've been in the playoffs, but I'm still probably putting them and then probably the Steelers ahead of everybody else, just in my mind. But I mean, anybody could take the AFC. I mean, you've got a lot of good teams. The Ravens could get hot. Lamar could take over games. I mean, they've got a lot of good teams over there. So
Lamar's in a little bit of a rough patch here for sure. Like I mean, the fact that it even came down in my head to battle if I was going to start him or Stafford this week was.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good move. Did you take my advice or?
No, I took. Well, I was leaning towards Stafford initially, and then like I asked you, and I asked Ben, C, and I asked RJ.
Yeah.
And they said to go with Stafford, and I was like already leaning towards Stafford, so I should have went with. I'm gonna have to listen to Ben, even though sometimes he doesn't set his lineup.
I just didn't. I mean, we'll talk about the Lions a little bit, but I just didn't think that. I mean, I knew what you were saying. Like, if the Lions got down, they'd have to throw, but I wasn't confident with Galladay not being there, and I just didn't think. I don't know.
We'll talk about that and how Galladay is a difference maker for sure.
Yeah, Stafford just hasn't had any like absurd fantasy weeks really this year yet. I mean, he's been solid enough, but they just don't have the team and the weapons around him that I feel like he's going to blow up anytime. So.
Yeah, and so I was going to do my weekly stats here, and then we'll talk about the Lions a little bit here. But Jacoby Myers, he had 169 receiving yards on his birthday yesterday.
That was a great.
That's the most for any NFL player on their birthday since Bob Hayes did it for the Cowboys in December of 1970.
Wow. All right.
Joe Flacco's touchdown pass to Jamison Crowder had a 6.2% completion probability per Next Gen Stats.
That was the one in the corner, the left corner.
Yep, that's the most improbable catch on per Next Gen Stats since 2017.
Wow.
And then Joe Flacco also in that game passed Joe Montana for 20th on the all-time passing yards list. Joe Flacco passed Joe Montana.
I mean, part of that, like we talk about like the differences in the game of football, when we go through our all-time best QBs, but I'm telling you, like Joe Flacco, like he's really not that bad. Like
I always felt like he's above average, but obviously he's probably like a little below average now with Father Time.
Yeah, it's possible, and he's on a terrible team, which doesn't help him at all right now. But
also true.
He's not bad, and he's won. I mean, he has a ring, so it's. I would take him on my team, especially if I'm a good team and he's your backup quarterback.
I know he's got to be one of the best backups in the league.
Yeah, by far, I think he would be.
Yeah. Let's see. The Steelers are the 26th team since 1970 merger to start 8-0 in a season. 15 of those 26 have made it to a Super Bowl. 8 of those teams have won the Super Bowl, and the last one was the 2009 Saints to win the Super Bowl, starting 8-0. Tomlin now has 14 consecutive seasons with a winning record to start his career. So that's tied for Marty Schottenheimer for the most in NFL history.
Yeah, he's been good. I mean, he gets a bad rap, I think, because a lot of times he's compared to Belichick. And it's just a different, like, he's just has a different style. Like, Belichick's, like, super organized, like, very, business, just take care of business, whatever. Tomlin's a little more disorganized, a little more of a player's coach probably. And I think he just gets a bad rap because he's had issues beating Belichick in the past. And I mean, he's a good coach.
And there's also talk about how he has trouble controlling some of his players. Obviously, they've had troubles with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but who hasn't?
Yeah, I mean, those two are just problems, I think.
A bunch of divas.
I mean,
Brown's had trouble with plenty of others, so I don't think it's really Mike Tomlin's.
Yeah. The last 4 Cowboys touchdown passes have been thrown by 4 different players: Dak Prescott, Cedric Wilson, Andy Dalton, and Garrett Gilbert. The last time that's happened for the Cowboys was 2001, when Anthony Wright, Clint Stoerner, Ryan Leaf, and Quincy Carter threw touchdown passes that year.
Wow. That's some good names.
I know, they were all pretty solid. Quincy Carter and Ryan Leaf were legends in college.
Yeah, in college. The issue is the issue with that is that Dak Prescott is still on in part of the last 4, and he's been hurt for how many weeks?
Like the last 3 games now, right?
Yeah. So they haven't scored very many touchdowns lately.
No. Then I got Tom Brady took his second loss to the Saints this season. It's the first time in his NFL career that Brady has been swept in a regular season by a divisional opponent.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Welcome. That's what happens when you go to a tough division, though. We've always thought AFC East has kind of been a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah, that's tough division, new team, different everything. Yeah, I mean,
he's lost twice before to another division opponent, but not in a regular season. And he lost the New York Jets in 2010.
In the playoffs and once in the regular
season. And once in the regular season.
Yep.
Justin Herbert broke Cam Newton's rookie record of most pass yards in a rookie's first 7 starts since at least 1950.
Wow. All right. I'm telling you, Herbert.
He looked good, man. He looks good. If they could just hold leads.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not all him. But, yeah, if he can keep it up, he might have a good shot at Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Let's see what I got. A couple more here. Ravens have 20-plus points in 31 consecutive games. That's the longest streak in NFL history. 31 straight games of 20-plus points. Wow.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah. The highest percent of drives ending in a score, the Raiders are first place with 53% of their drives ending with a score. The lowest is the Jets at 22.5%.
That's so bad.
Yes.
Like most of the NFL is probably somewhere just hanging out in the middle there.
Yeah, they're all pretty close, but there's a 31% difference between the Jets and the Raiders.
Like, you can't, like, oh,
I am more surprised though. I mean, we knew the Jets were going to be bad, but the Raiders being first is, I think, a pretty big surprise.
yeah, I mean, they certainly have a lot of talent on that offense. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been pretty
Well,
awesome.
yeah, other than Josh Jacobs, that's really the only one that really jumped out to me though preseason. Darren Waller was like a top-notch tight end, but you look at Derek Carr and you're like, eh.
I think
And then you look at
underrated. If he has enough, he has a bunch of arm talent, and I think he's
he's a smart quarterback. He doesn't make a whole lot of bad choices.
no, and he's pretty athletic back there. I think he's pretty good with a good team, and they have a running game that certainly helps him. So.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Josh Jacobs for sure. Let's see. One more, and it's not really a stat. It's another thing that came out today where the NFL passed a resolution that would reward teams with 2 third-round compensatory picks if they develop or have a coach for at least 2 years, a minority coach or an executive who's hired as another team's head coach or executive or GM. So, for example, like if Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, if he got a head coach job after this offseason, the Chiefs would get a third-round compensatory pick this year for 2021 and then next year for 2022. So stupid. I think it's incredibly stupid. We're trying to be equal and stuff, but you're treating them like they're different.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, that's cool. And, like, I think, like, there certainly always needs to be steps to, like, taking, if we're trying to be equal, then, like, make sure we're equal. But, like, don't award draft picks for them grooming.
Third rounds, you can get a good player out of a third round.
Exactly. That's pointless. That's so stupid. And, yes, it's obviously going to make, give teams incentive. But then here's the problem. My problem is that might make teams not want to hire them, because it'd be like, oh, we don't want them to get 2 draft picks. We're not going to take him. Like, that's dumb. That's so dumb, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what they can do to try to really resolve those if they want this kind of affirmative action sort of thing in the NFL. I don't know what a real solution is. Can you think of anything?
You just need to have. I mean, if you, regardless of race or anything, if you can do the job better, then you should be hired. And the issue is, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's probably an issue where that doesn't happen enough, where that doesn't happen in certain situations. But, if Eric Bieniemy is against a white guy with the same, I guess, resume, like that's where they want to get to the point where, like, okay, Eric Bieniemy, is taken. But my problem is they shouldn't be, if the other guy has the same or better resume, they shouldn't be forced to take Eric Bieniemy because they want, draft picks, or they want, they want to be rewarded for hiring a team like that. They shouldn't, you know what I mean? Like,
and I think, unfortunately, I think the issue lies more with GMs typically. I mean, there's like what? Is there only like 2 African American GMs in the NFL?
Yep.
Yep. And obviously, Louis Riddick deserves a shot. I hope the Lions get Louis Riddick. I'm a big fan. But
Eric Bieniemy deserves a shot at a coaching job.
I agree with that. So my point with the head coaching thing though is there's so much push to get these guys, their fair shot if they're qualified for sure. But the American population for African Americans is like right around 12.5%. Mm-hmm. And I think there's like 16% of the NFL teams have an African American head coach.
Yeah.
So it's like it's staying right around the. I mean,
not
you can make it 50-50. It's not.
Yeah, this isn't the 60s and 70s anymore. Like this it's not as big of a problem from the head coaching standpoint. I see what you're saying with GMs, and like that needs to be probably resolved more than the head coaching problem. I think we're seeing more and more black head coaches. We just talked about one, Mike Tomlin.
There's Anthony Lynn and Brian Flores, and
there's a lot of them. There's probably going to be more. I mean, Eric Bieniemy is going to get a shot.
Yeah.
Unless he goes to college. I mean, you could always do that as a big-time head coach somewhere there. But he'll get a shot for sure. And there's going to be more, and there's continuing to be more, and that's good. But I don't think we need to be rewarding draft picks to teams that develop and
to me, I feel like if I was African American, I'd be offended by that. I'd be like, why are you treating me differently? Like I'm worth something, like a prize.
Yeah, that's dumb. Exactly. So I get what the spirit of what the NFL is probably trying to do is probably good. But there's a better way to go about it than that.
Oh, this is definitely well intentioned. It's just I can see how people would perceive it either way.
Yeah, and I just don't understand. Like we talked about with a bunch of different things. Like you said, if you want to be considered equal, and the NFL wants to have these coaches and these front office people be considered equal, then don't treat them any differently. Okay, just give them a fair shake in every situation. Give them a fair shake.
There's definitely qualified men and women out there that are qualified to coach. So,
yes. Regardless of ethnicity or race or anything. So, give them a fair shake. Mm-hmm. If you give them a fair shake, then it'll work out anyway. Like it should, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I think the world is definitely trending that way with head coaches, like you said, and coordinators. Like there's coordinators and head coaches alike. There's several that are minority now, but GMs, I don't know what it is. I don't know what if they're not.
I think a lot of times what happens to GMs, it gets. I mean, it's kind of an inside. You got to kind of. You got to be a part of like an organization for a while to get up to that point, right? Usually, or you got to already be a GM or an assistant GM or close to with another.
A lot of them look at like scouts though, and there are a lot of minority scouts.
Yeah. So
it's just they have to get to that next level.
Yeah, you got to get that next level. You got to be, I don't know, like a lot of times you look at a GM and they've got some big business degree, or they've got, you know what I mean? But then they got involved in football or something. So there's some of that to be taken into account. I just think there's plenty of talent in front offices, or talent that's going to be in front offices around sports in the NFL in general, that are minorities that, yeah, I agree. You need to, I mean, that needs to be solved more than the coaching problem. Because I think the coaching problem is certainly probably still a problem. And I guarantee there are instances where somebody didn't get a fair shake when they should have.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, obviously without, experiencing it myself and being there, I think they're starting to figure that portion of it out. So, and rewarding draft picks is not the way to do it though. It's just dumb. You're causing, like you said, you're causing more problems. You're causing them to be treated differently when there's no reason for that at all. So,
yeah. So, going to the Detroit Lions here, obviously they lost another one to the Vikings. And Matt Patricia still has his job, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I think by now they're just going to let him ride it out the rest of the year. I don't think I mean, maybe they would if it got real bad in a certain game. The problem is they're showing enough glimpses in every game, or even if when they lose by a couple touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns, that it's like, oh, they're not a complete mess, even though they kind of are. So I don't know. It's just, I think they'll probably just let him ride out the rest of the year at this point, and then hopefully reevaluate.
I've got to think that the only way that Patricia obviously sticks around is
pull out like 9-7 somehow, and
Yeah, well, even if he sticks out throughout the season, it's obviously if he doesn't lose to Washington and Carolina in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, these need to be two wins.
But they should definitely. Carolina is playing teams tough though, for sure. Washington is in a terrible NFC East, and they still have a bad record. So Washington, they have to beat the football team this week.
Yeah, they should really.
And I think that's where if he loses this game, if Patricia loses this game, if they get smoked or something, or if it's another close one where they collapse, that's coaching once again. And the onus needs to be on Patricia. And Patricia needs to stop saying the same thing after every game in the postgame. Like he says, oh, just didn't execute when we need to execute. You can't keep running that, dude. Like
you can, but you're just gonna have a problem with the media and your fans. You can say whatever you want, and I guess like I've always said, coaches and players don't really owe us anything when they talk. However,
yeah, you can't keep running. I mean, he's got to take responsibility, and none of his post games does it seem like he ever takes responsibility.
Well, I mean, here's my thing. I could care less what a coach says after a game. It matters more what he's saying to his team in the locker room. So, you would hope that he's taking responsibility upon himself, with his coaching staff and with his team, and says, all right, we've got to turn this thing around. Um, the only time it's a problem, I think, in post games is if, a coach is kind of constantly throwing players under the bus, or if he's just like spouting off and saying stupid stuff all the time. Patricia's just, all he's doing is really taking the Belichick way and just saying the same thing over and over again and not answering any questions, which, okay, that's fine, but it does get old.
Mm-hmm.
It gets old for fans because they want to hear, fans want to hear, what are you doing to fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think he's ever going to be a guy that does that. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that lets us know. And unfortunately, when you're consistently losing, then as a fan, you go, oh, they're not doing anything. When, okay, they're definitely doing something, but it might just be they're just not going in the right direction, and they need to change, which I've said from the beginning of the year. So,
yes, I'm ready for that change to kick in. Obviously, like I said, Louis Riddick and Eric Bieniemy, I'm all good with that.
Yep. That would be good. I'm pretty much good with anybody else.
Right?
It's just,
I'll take Bill Belichick, son with a mullet.
Yeah, there you go. He's
got a sweet mullet.
He does have a cool mullet. I just think, like I've said before, if this is how the Lions looked in year 2 or year 1, you'd have some cause for optimism, but everything's the same.
Even though it's still a step backwards. He took over at 9-17.
But if you're Patricia, you can sit there and be like, if this is year 1, you can sit there and be like, okay, we got a long way to go. We're trying to change a bunch of things. We're still 3-5, and we're beating. Technically, really, they are beating the teams that they are better than, and they're losing the teams that they are not as good as, or as good as, or it's close. You know what I mean? So
yeah. They played against them hard for sure.
Yeah, and they haven't really lost a game where you go, man, they were way better football team than them, right? The minute that happens, though, I agree. So let's say they go out and lay an egg against Washington, he's got to be gone.
I was actually surprised he wasn't gone on Monday morning, but that's why I kind of agree with what you said. I think they might just let him ride it out for the year.
I think they will now, just because if you're not going to fire him after that start,
But I'm all for Brandon Coombs as head coach, man. That special teams is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's the best part of the team right now.
I got a little excited on Sunday. Those 2 blocks. Yep. 2 of the 3 in the last 2 weeks, right?
Yep. And the punter's been awesome. So, yeah, it's been really good.
Best punter in the league. Yeah, Matt Prater has kind of been terrible. But
yeah, I don't think he's just drunk or something.
Yeah, well, it's the thing with kickers too is they decline fast.
Well, but
he's 36 now.
The weird thing with kickers though is that they'll have a really bad year. Like Mason Crosby a few years ago was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where they didn't even really, they were like, do we keep this guy? But he's been a good kicker to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next couple of years he was great again. So it's I think things just happen. It's kicking. It's not really.
It is a head game. If you get in your head enough after a miss and you can't get it back out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's either he's in his own head or he's back to drinking again.
Yeah, or both. Maybe he needs to be drinking. That might be.
Maybe that's the recipe.
There you go.
So yeah, they got the Washington football team this week. Obviously they don't have Landon Collins and Matt Ioannidis and Greg Stroman, Reuben Foster, Kelvin Harmon, Bryce Love. Caleb Brantley opted out. So they've got a couple guys that aren't on the team that could definitely make them better. But obviously Terry McLaurin's still super effective. Antonio Gibson and Peyton Barber and even J.D. McKissick has found some competence and a bad – to me, I don't think they have a great offensive line except for Brandon Sheriff.
Yeah. So, I'd say the only thing that really would scare me about Washington is the Lions should be able to put up points against Washington. But Washington certainly does have playmakers on offense
and defense. They have we talked about they have the best defensive line probably in football. If they had Ioannidis, they'd be better.
I just think the Lions, regardless of who plays at receiver, they're going to be able to throw the ball as long as they can protect it a little bit. So they have playmakers. They're just not a very good football team overall. And
my worry is like you've got a couple dynamic backs. McKissick's pretty good. Gibson's been awesome. How poorly the Lions played against, Dalvin Cook. Obviously, neither of those guys are Dalvin Cook, but how poorly they were able to contain Dalvin Cook last week. My worry is that kind of continues this week, and they struggle on defense.
So none of these running backs are Dalvin Cook for sure.
No, they're not.
It was hard. It was a hard watch against Minnesota because the one thing that the Lions have been doing really well the previous 3 weeks since they came back from bye week was stop the run. Like I said, they stopped Todd Gurley and James Robinson really well. And here we are now after Dalvin Cook. It's like, did they just get demoralized? We're learning Jelani Tavai is probably, every fan knew it. We're like, what the heck are you doing here? But he's looking like a bust for real.
Yeah, he is. And, now it's almost kind of turning where the DBs are starting to play a lot better than the front seven, which I kind of thought was going to be the way the whole year was.
Yeah, Jeff Okudah in the last 4 weeks, I think he's like the 5th highest graded Pro Football Focus corner. Yes. After being the very dead last. And
yes. So that's more of what we expected out of him, or we're hoping out of him, at least. So there's certain things are working, but and yes, Dalvin Cook is a superstar. He's going to do that type of thing to a lot of teams. He already has, and he's certainly hot right now because the week before the Lions game, he was even better. Mm-hmm. So I'm not necessarily expecting that, but my worry is that maybe something got figured out. And maybe, teams are starting to take advantage of a weak front seven that the Lions have right now. And, it doesn't really matter as much who the back is. Gibson and McKissick are not bad running backs.
And Kate Barber just as the other change of pace too. So Alexander Madison also beat us up pretty good after they took that look out.
He did.
Okay, these running backs are at least Alexander Madison level, I would think. Mm-hmm. And I think we had just kind of given up on the game for the most part, and they had a number, but
it was a tough watch. And like you've talked about, like you're of the opinion, and I'm leaning that way too, that the Vikings are definitely better than their record. Mm-hmm. But I expected a closer game. Lions offense did themselves no favors. Turning the ball over doesn't help. Kenny Golladay not being there certainly hurts.
Yeah, it's weird. They are like what 0-5 now without Kenny Golladay. Oh no, 0-4 without Kenny Golladay, 3-1 with Kenny Golladay.
Yep,
that's a difference.
And it stinks. You shouldn't have one guy make that big of a difference, especially because you don't think of Kenny Golladay as a superstar, but he changes things for that offense. He's a go-to. He certainly opens things up for everybody else. Not having him certainly hurts. Lions really couldn't drum up much of a run game either. I was really hoping they'd be able to run the ball. If they were able to run the ball at all, with any kind of consistency, they would have been in much better shape. So,
yeah, but even again, DeAndre Swift had some good carries, and they kept sticking to Adrian Peterson.
He did, and you know what? But I don't know. I can't tell if the reason he's having good carries is because he's really fresh all the time, and and I can't tell if Adrian Peterson's just super unlucky and they're just not blocking very well on the plays that he's in. That's also possible. That happens sometimes, especially when you're rotating backs. Peterson certainly has a place on this team still. But yeah, I'd still like to see the Lions share the larger share of the carries go to Swift right now, just because he has the hot hand. He's more dynamic at this point.
I've never been a guy that's going to say Swift is like a more than 15 carry. I think Swift is like a 15 to 18 carry guy, to be honest. Maybe every once in a while he'll pull out 20, 21 carries. But I don't think he's one of those guys that's a workhorse. He's not a workhorse type of back, in my opinion.
No, but the problem is when you get down early too, and you don't play well early, then you get stuck and you're like, oh, well, we can't really run the ball as much anymore. And you get out of your game plan. We'll talk about this a little bit. We talk about Michigan too. You get out of your game plan a little bit, and then you get stuck and you abandon the run game maybe a little too early because you're down so quickly, and especially if you've lost a game or two in a row, and then then you're in a tough spot, and then it's hard to once you start abandoning the run game, it's hard to go back to it because in both college and the pro level, like the run game is very it's you got to be in a rhythm. You got to be, consistently trying to establish it, because once it's established, then you're in good shape. But before that, sometimes it can feel like you're running into a brick wall, but it's going to pay dividends in the second half. But if you're not able to do that because you're down and you feel like you have to throw all the time, it's hard to go back to it again. So I think the Lions the last couple weeks have kind of been stuck in that mode. And they just don't have enough weapons at receiver. I mean, with or without Galladay, to be throwing the ball all the time and putting it all on Stafford's shoulders at this point.
Yeah, and there's definitely I see a lot of potential with Quintez Cephas. Was really hoping they would have used him a little bit more in the absence, but they wanted to target Marvin Hall and with guys like Marvin Hall and Jamal Agnew. Like, obviously, there's slot speed threats. Like, they're guys that I think are main purpose for little dink and dunk if you can find an open crossing route. But they're not the guys that should be go-to guys ever. So Marvin Jones was that guy, but obviously the secondary put a focus on Marvin Jones being the number one guy for sure.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones isn't a guy that's going to dominate against double teams all game long. I mean, he's a very good number 2 or 3 receiver right now in the NFL. He's not a number 1 guy because he's not.
Do you think the Lions should try to scratch a little bit with Mohamed Sanu, because they signed him to the practice squad? But
I mean, I think he certainly. I don't know. I don't know what he can bring right now at this point.
It's been a while since I've seen him in action again. So
season, or maybe even his career. But certainly when he was a good, probably number 3 receiver for Atlanta there for a while. Mm-hmm. If you've got injuries at that position, I think you got to at least kick the tires around on him and see what you have there. We'll see how quickly he can learn off the offense and whatnot. But it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea to see what he's got. I mean, he certainly was a super good athlete.
And he can throw the football.
He can throw the ball. He played some QB back in the day. Yep. So maybe he's your emergency quarterback.
So we had Logan Thomas for that last year, but we need Sanu for that this year.
Yeah, we did see some Chase Daniel in this game, so that was interesting.
And he was just as bad, if not worse. His interception was worse than both the Staffords combined, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was not good. So still think Daniel's a pretty good backup, but
well, they paid him $13.3 million a year, so I hope so. It's a lot for a backup quarterback. But yeah, so I guess score predictions for this game. What do you expect?
I'm going to go Lions 38, Washington 20.
I'm kind of leaning towards that. I don't know if the Lions will put up 38. And again, Galladay is still questionable. I haven't really gotten a recent update on him. But I think that they should be able to stop the offense. Alex Smith is the quarterback now, full time, because Kyle Allen's now out. Dwayne Haskins is number 2 though, so we never know who we're gonna see. But either way, I'm not really threatened by either of those guys right now. And so I'm leaning towards taking the Lions by 10 to 14 points. So I guess I could say 31-17.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Washington's gonna make some plays on offense. They've got enough weapons. Their front 7 on defense. They're mostly a defensive line. It's probably going to cause some problems. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like the Lions will be able to consistently move the ball. And hopefully they can maybe establish a run game now. This game, if they can against this team, then I don't know. I mean, I still don't know anyway. But they just
I'm going to spend a whole lot more time on NFL Red Zone if they can't win this game.
Yeah, I mean, if the Lions. If they can't, I don't really expect any game in the NFL to be dominating anymore because it's hard to dominate a team in the NFL. But they should go out there and they should look like the better football team and play like the better football team and win by a couple touchdowns at least is really what it should be. And if they don't do that, I mean, I've already given up on the Patricia thing, but if they don't do that, it's just more evidence, That's all it really is. It really doesn't change anything in my mind, but it's just more evidence, and maybe it just happens quicker. It's, like you said, if they don't win or they look really bad, then it probably just needs to happen. So
Just rip the Band-Aid right off. That's where I stand for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, who's got more playmakers on this game now? Wisconsin, Michigan. I want to talk about this.
Yeah. I have no idea who Wisconsin's QB is going to be because they still don't know if Graham Mertz is going to play or not. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Is Chase Wolf still out too then?
I think they're kind of both in the same.
Oh yeah,
boat.
so if one's out, then the other one's probably out. So it's going to be like Van and Boom or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, and who knows what's happening in practice with them? They haven't practiced up until like this week. So this is kind of a weird game. I mean, it's a night game. Michigan played well in their last night game. It's in Ann Arbor, which means nothing. Home and away means nothing right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It'll probably be cold. So I don't know who that helps. It probably helps Wisconsin because Wisconsin, you know what they're going to do? They're going to line up. They're try to run the ball down their throats. Regardless of whether Graham Mertz is in or not, they're going to line up. I mean, even that game against Illinois that he looked like the Heisman Trophy winner, you know, it lined up.
It's just really experienced. Yeah, it's a really experienced offensive line. Like all of them are redshirt juniors or older.
Yeah, and they're all probably going to play in the NFL, so they're all just very good.
Colton Lannon specifically is probably a potential first-round tackle.
Yeah. Yep. So they're good, and they do what they know what they're doing. So I don't think missed practice time is going to really hurt them on offense. It would hurt them on defense, I would think, more than anything else. So I don't know. This is a weird game. Obviously, Michigan has looked very bad their previous two games.
Mm-hmm.
Saw some things on the rewatch on offense that were at least a little bit encouraging. I thought Milton was pretty good up until he started forcing things late. Obviously, he missed some throws. But he certainly played a good third quarter. Got him right back in the game, and then forced to throw down the sideline on the interception. But really, the turning point in that game was the pass interference on Vincent Gray when they had Indiana.
I'm done with Vincent Gray, to be honest.
Yeah, but here's the problem though. When you're sitting there as Ambry Thomas was going to be their number one corner, and then he opted out. So then you move Vincent Gray over to number one corner, and he's struggling. He probably wouldn't be struggling as much if he wasn't the number one corner. If he was the 2 or 3 corner.
I don't know if Dax Hill's ready to move to corner full time though.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I think they're just going to have to stick with what they have at this point. I mean, they're not deep there. They already tried to move Jalen Perry there, and he struggled against Michigan State. So unless
Jamon Green's been pretty good though. I mean,
Jamon Green's fine. Like, yeah, he's had his fair share of struggles too, but that's going to happen sometimes. You know, he's been fine.
I'm good with putting Jamon Green's other brother on the other side. They did it in high school, do it in college. Jermaine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he's not in, he's not better than Gray.
Jermaine Green hasn't done anything more than a couple kickoff coverages.
Yeah, so it is what it is at this point at that position. They mixed in a ton of zone against Indiana, and that didn't make that much of a difference. Indiana really didn't run the ball well.
They had a couple good runs from Stevie Scott, but
it wasn't like they were just running train on him. But
it's really never been their style. Like, I mean, even when they had Jordan Howard, I remember that game went like triple overtime. But they've never been a run first team. It seems like their quarterbacks are always throwing 40 to 50 times a game.
Sure, but I mean, I don't think Michigan's run defense is a huge concern right now. It might be now that Aiden Hutchinson's out. But I don't think it's a huge concern right now. But, yeah, the pass defense is just porous. They've got wide open holes. Dax Hill can't cover everybody. I mean, he's been pretty good when he's given his chance, but I wouldn't throw anywhere near him if I'm the opposing team.
You got everybody else open. Why throw it towards Dax Hill?
Exactly. So
Brad Hawkins. I think Brad Hawkins I think the safeties are good.
Safeties are fine, but I mean, if you were that bad at corner, you're kind of handcuffed as a defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're like, oh, you need to get pressure on the quarterback. Hard to do that when you can't cover anybody. You got to be able to cover a little bit to give your players your front seven time to get pressure, and then you can't send anybody on a blitz because you don't want to give more openings for passes.
This is the first time since Don Brown's been there as defensive coordinator, they've gone back-to-back games without a sack.
Yep. And some of that is due to, a lot of quick passes, a lot of quick fades. I mean, you're never really going to get.
Or just wide open guys. If you got a quick open guy, and then.
Exactly. So if they're, I sent you that video on Kwity Paye.
Yeah, he's killing it.
He's killing it, but he only has like 2 sacks, right? And you got them both in the first game. You got 2.5 sacks, and you got them both in the first game. If Michigan's corners could hold up at all, I mean, he would be having a monster year, and he already is having a big year.
And someone besides maybe Carlo Kemp in the middle being effective.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't have, but they don't have dynamic defensive tackles this year. That is their problem. The past 3 years, they haven't. Ever since
They're rotating a couple through, like it's Chris Hinton and Carlo Kemp and Donovan Jeter and Julius Welshoff. Like
that's fine if they want to rotate. They should rotate, but they don't have the they are soft up the middle.
and those aren't big defensive tackles. In fact, Chris Hinton looks like a middle linebacker in the NFL.
Yes. I think he could be good eventually. He was a 5-star coming out of high school.
Yeah.
But they don't have that dynamic pass rusher at defensive tackle, and it's really good having that, or at least a guy who's going to stuff stuff up the middle. Like Ryan Glasgow was a monster up the middle when he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Hurst was unblockable his last year at Michigan. Literally.
Rashawn Gary was at least an anchor type of guy in the middle.
Rashawn Gary played defensive end, but you could slide him down, and he was bigger than most defensive tackles.
Yeah, you can't do it on our ends. Luis Milan looks like he's 230 pounds.
Yeah. So they have deficiencies, especially on defense, and I think it's a young team still. So I think a lot of what they're going through right now is just like it's inconsistent. The defense just needs to be fixed and needs to be, they've got to figure something out with the pass defense. I think on offense they're just inconsistent because you see like the plays are like they're close on a lot of these. Milton just missing on a couple of guys.
Yeah, deep throw accuracy of 11.
But then you saw him hit the perfect throw to Ronnie Bell on the fade there, and a perfect throw to Cornelius Johnson on that other touchdown. So it's like you can see he can do it, and a great throw on the slant to Roman Wilson for a touchdown. So it's like you can see it's there, but he's only played 3 football games. I mean,
I'm trying to be patient with it. It's just it is frustrating, and for whatever reason, a lot of us fans, and I'm going to definitely blame myself for this. I've put a lot of pressure and put my expectations so high for Joe Milton because, this is a guy that pushed Dylan McCaffrey out.
Well, I don't think he's necessarily underperformed. I mean, I expected a few bad interceptions. But, I mean, he's thrown for 300 yards his past 2 games, and he was super efficient that first game. I mean, he hasn't done anything. It's not his fault that they've lost these games.
They dropped so many balls, too. I think, oh, my gosh.
Dropped a lot of balls. I mean, Eric All's dropped.
Like I said, Ronnie Bell dropped a touchdown pass, too. He's good for 1 key drop every game.
He had a good game last game, though.
But he dropped a key one in the end zone. I try to be – but he did against Penn State. I remember watching that at our in-laws' cottage. And he devastates me every single time. Like, all the good that he does.
He didn't have a drop last game, though. He didn't have a drop.
Yeah, what he did? I think he did. I think I texted RJ and said, "Oh, there's Ronnie Bell, good for another drop."
I don't think he had a drop. At least not one that was like a legit drop. I mean, the dude had like 140 yards and a touchdown. I don't blame him. I mean, he was the only receiver really doing anything. But here's the other problem, though. Okay, they are young at the receiver. They've got Giles Jackson's his second year, but he's more of a slot H-back type guy. Roman Wilson's a freshman. AJ Henning's a freshman. Cornelius Johnson's a sophomore, but he barely played last year. I mean, Ronnie Bell,
to me, though, Cornelius Johnson fits that offense. They got all this speed and space, but they don't utilize it. Yeah. Run more crossing routes. Run more slant routes. Figure something out.
Part of it is because I think a big part of it is their offensive line has been poor. And they were even more poor this past week because both their starting tackles were out.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of time for Milton to throw. And they couldn't run the ball, and then we get back to that. I mean, they had like 18 rushing yards, and they only ran the ball like 20 times. So
I still say stick with Hassan Haskins. Every single run he had, even like he had some tough runs, but every single one he was like pushing extra he was fighting for yardage.
I think what happened too, they needed to stick with it longer, stick with the run longer. But we just talked about this with the Lions. They got down 24-7 super early. And then they feel like, oh shoot, we have to throw the ball to get back in it, which they're right to an extent. My problem was, so they got back in the game and they're only down 10, right? And it's like early fourth quarter, and they have the ball. There's like 10 minutes left in the game, maybe 11, and they have the ball early fourth quarter. And first play of the drive, and like Milton hit like Johnson on like a 10-yard comeback. So nice play, another first down. It's like, and then they felt like they just kept having to throw the ball, and I'm like, run a safe play, like run a safe, like a screen, or run the ball. It's okay. Like you don't need to get it all back at once. Like you're down 10, you have all the momentum. Like your defense just got you a couple stops in a row. Just be smart with it. You can go down and kick a field goal. That's fine. Like just get within a score, because if they had gone down and scored a touchdown there, or even a field goal, I feel pretty good about Michigan's chances to win that game. But they force a ball, it gets intercepted, or and the rest is history. They weren't going to consistently stop Indiana the whole game, but if they had the momentum, I feel like they would have had a better chance. And it's just frustrating. Like you said, it's frustrating to see.
This is like deja vu of 2008 all over again, though, when the Lions and the Wolverines were just bad.
Yeah, I think Michigan has the potential to turn it around. I see like an ability, not like they're not going to beat Ohio State. They're not going to, they're not going to be a great team this year. They'll probably beat Penn. They should beat Penn State. Penn State looks horrible.
But Maryland looks good.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole year is weird.
And Rutgers is actually they're still playing. I mean, they played Ohio State tough and then they lost, but
yeah, they got smoked eventually. But
yeah.
So I feel like this team has the ability, and they're close. It's just super inconsistent, and they need the offensive line to be a little healthier, and they really, I think the defense is going to be a problem all year. Hopefully they can figure it out to an extent, and then hopefully the offense grows up to a point to where they can carry them a little bit, and maybe they can win games where the defense in modern college football, you're going to give up 3 touchdowns every game, probably at least. I mean, unless you're just that much better, and you're very rarely are you. I mean, even Clemson's vaunted defense is giving up a ton of points, right?
I remember back in probably 5-6 years ago now, though, when Alabama was only giving up like 7.2 points a game.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Even Alabama doesn't do that. Even against teams like, I mean, they gave up 49 points to Ole Miss. So that doesn't even happen, and they're probably one of the better defenses in the country. But even Nick Saban, the other day I was listening to an interview of him talking. He's like, defense does not win you games in college football anymore. It just doesn't. You need to be, you need to force team. It's a game of runs. It's almost like basketball now. So like, okay, you get 2 or 3 stops in a row. That is your chance to, maybe take a 2 or 3 touchdown lead, and that's how you win games. Fully knowing that other team is going to score too. But that's how you win the game. You're
got to be 1 or 2 steps ahead at all times.
Yeah, you're not shutting teams out anymore. It doesn't happen rarely. I mean, every once in a while, obviously you can do it, but and this Michigan defense is certainly not going to shut any team out. I am concerned about this game against Wisconsin though, just because I don't know. I'm concerned about every game at this point.
Yeah, I'm feeling a 2-6 regular season. I've said that, but
I think they'll figure it out. I would not be surprised if they win this game.
I would. I'd be very excited.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be excited. I wouldn't be surprised though. I just don't know what to expect out of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin's only game, they beat a very bad Illinois team pretty handily. That doesn't really show me a lot, and then they haven't been able to practice. So, and who knows if Graham Mertz is even going to be able to play. If Graham Mertz doesn't play, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. So, I don't know. It's just a tough team to watch.
You just got 2 weeks extra to prepare. That's all.
Yeah, but they can't practice. They couldn't practice.
Oh, that's right. Well, they could do those Zoom meetings on one.
Shut it. Yeah, I guess, but they shut the whole thing down. They couldn't even practice. So I don't know.
What kind of score are you thinking here?
I think it'll probably be like 31-21 Wisconsin, something like that.
That's a good guess.
I would like to pick. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a blowout either way by any means. Just because I don't think Wisconsin's that much better than Michigan. I really don't. I just don't. But if Michigan can't stop the run, I mean, Wisconsin does not have a Jonathan Taylor back there. I mean, if Garrett Groshek is your top back,
yeah, you got Nicky Watson.
Yeah, and that still doesn't scare you back there if you're any team. But their offensive line is tough, and Michigan's defensive line is not really that great. So
But I do think Michigan, if they can get fired up, maybe a little bit of revenge for getting just completely waxed by them last year, under the lights, I think they could definitely make it a good game. So, but yeah, I'd go 31-21 Wisconsin.
No, that's a really good score, especially difference-wise. I think it's probably going to be about a 10-point game, and I think Wisconsin's going to win. The defense is pretty good, and I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, either way. I guess if they blow it up or if it's just a mess. So Milton could throw for 2 or 3 picks, or he could throw for 3 touchdowns, no picks, and we have a completely different game. But I think 27-17, Wisconsin seems legitimate to me.
Good pick. That's the thing about Milton. You see the potential. I mean, I haven't seen the arm that strong,
and not from a Michigan quarterback. Yeah.
I mean, I might not have seen the arm that strong from anybody in college for a long time.
You think it's better than Matt Stafford at Georgia or Josh Allen at Wyoming?
It's still been a long time. I mean,
Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech.
It does remind me of like Allen. Like it reminds me of like a Josh Allen, just because his stature too, how big he is. Like it reminds me of Josh Allen a little bit. And but like
there's reasons to get excited. Obviously, get these games under his belt this year, and then obviously next.
That's how I'm looking at the rest of the year. I'm like, all right, look, they just need to be. If they show that they're getting better and consistently, maybe just not, getting worse, especially on offense, then I'm going to feel pretty good about next year. You're going to have a returning quarterback. They're not going to fire Harbaugh, as much as some people are going to call it. They're not going to fire Harbaugh. Now, if he leaves, that's a whole different story, but they're not going to fire Harbaugh. All right.
That's an interesting. Definitely a discussion for maybe another time, but I don't know.
They're not going to. The dude did bring now. They might renegotiate the contract and say, all right, look, man, we're not paying $8 million anymore. And that's completely valid,
And then that could be the decision for him, either just be like, all right, I'll leave, or
I think he wants to stay. I really do. But, Harbaugh's going to have to take a look at, I think offensively they're probably moving in the right direction. But the defense, I think, is going to have to take a hard look.
Recruiting corners.
Yeah, you're going to have to take a hard look at the defense in general and just say, okay, look, Don Brown, you were great for a while, but you might have just kind of been figured out.
He's stubborn. Stubborn old man will not change.
Yeah, and you've been figured out. He was really good with in 2016, when his first year here, that was probably the best Michigan defense I remember ever.
Yeah.
But they had, 14 NFL players on that defense. I mean, they had NFL guys on the bench. Bo Hurst didn't even start on that team. So, that's – I think all starting 11, at least at one point, were on an NFL roster.
Yeah, well, Burt Hill wasn't starting at that point either.
No. I mean, you had Jordan Lewis, Shannon Stripling.
Yeah. They had Jeremy Clark.
He wasn't even very – he would be –
DeMonte Thomas.
Jared Wilson was on – or no, Delano
I think
Hill.
Wilson was gone by then.
Delano Hill.
Delano Hill.
Jabril Peppers, Mike McRae, who got a look in the NFL, but then he retired.
Ben Gedeon, I think, too.
Gideon was on that. No, was he? Yeah, Ben Gideon was on that team. Devin Bush sat the bench. Devin Bush could not get on the field for that team.
Yeah, because they had the other Ross, right? Was there another Ross or whatever? Josh Ross?
Josh Ross is on that. This Josh Ross might have even been on that team, but
I'm trying to think of that. Was there another?
Ross, he graduated the year before, though.
James Ross. Yeah, James Ross, I was thinking.
They were loaded. They were just completely loaded. Up front, Rashawn Gary couldn't start on that team. Chase Winovich didn't start on that team. It was Taco Trout and Chris Wormley. That team was loaded.
Yeah, I missed that now.
That
makes me smile.
If those, if you're doing that great with that team, you should be a really good defense with that team, right? That was the only team where they held Ohio State down. They really did. And then he was pretty good the next year, pretty good defense, younger, but pretty good. He was good in 2018 again, but then these last 2 years, you can see the NFL talent isn't quite there anymore, and he's struggling. Obviously, some of that's to be expected, but eventually you got to say, okay, look, we're not going to have that loaded team every single year. It's just, it doesn't happen. You got to find a way to be better than this. And
these 5-star recruits are what, Zach Charbonnet was a 5-star. And
Wilson Hill's a 5-star, and he's showing out.
Dax is the only one that's been good, though. Charbonnet hasn't been good this year.
Yeah. I don't know. rely on a back enough. They need to just ride one. I don't really care who they pick at this point. I mean, Haskins has been the best back, but
if I'm going by eye test, Haskins to me, he's always pushing for the extra effort. He doesn't just
he does have limitations, though. I mean, he's not as good in pass protection. He really can't catch the ball. So I get what they're saying, why they want to rotate the backs, because like Chris Evans, he's really good out of the backfield,
Mhm.
and he's a good pass protector. Blake Corum is super fast, and as a freshman, so you would definitely want to get him playing time. Zach Charbonnet kind of has a combination of all of that.
I think they're deep, even at that fifth. I mean, they haven't even touched their fifth running back, Christian Turner. But I think Christian Turner's a starter on a MAC team.
Yeah, that's the deepest position on the team. But they gotta eventually. I mean, it's hard. You gotta eventually just give one guy a shot and just let him roll.
So we made our predictions there. Wanted to scram over.
I love it, but it's just a tough team to watch right now. But hopefully they can put it all together. If they put it all together offensively, I think they can certainly beat Wisconsin. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they do, but I don't.
If they put it all together, they might only just lose to Ohio State for the rest of the year, and then they still at least finish with 3 losses.
Yeah, and if that happens, I mean, then you just.
I'll take 5-3, and then potentially 6-3 on that 9th game.
Yeah, I'll take it, and then you could have a bowl game. You can go 7-3, and you'll take that this year. You will.
Yeah.
But I don't.
I don't see it right now, but Wisconsin's definitely a chance to tell us otherwise. So
yeah, this is the test to see if they even have a chance to turn it around.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the pick 6 here, we are all really close still in the standings. Somehow, with all of our different picks last week, we still all went 4-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what happens here. Now, I was wondering, and I can also ask you this off now, but I've already gotten on the subject. Are we going to go to the first one to get 63 correct for 6-3, or are we going to do it at the end of the year as after December is done? 63 could be a while. We're past. We're like 24 right now, so we've got another 3 months before any of us are touching 63. Otherwise, you have at the end of the year, we're got a month and a half.
Let's go to 63. That'd be fun because then we'll have to mix up the picks.
I think we'll be more off by then too. I think we could still relatively be close after a week, a month and a half yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that 63 allows us to.
63 would be fun. Then we'll start having to pick like maybe some college basketball games in there and stuff like that. Start up because eventually you're going to run out of at least some college football games. Because if we go to the end of the year, I think the Big Ten's last game is like December 19th, regular season at least. And maybe we can throw some bowl games in there. That might be kind of cool. So, let's go 63.
Sweet. All right, well, then the first one this week is going to be the Colts at the Titans.
Yeah, I am going to go – that's actually kind of tough. I'm going to go with Titans. I think Titans just overall are a better team. Colts have the best defense in football. Titans don't have a bad defense, though. I think the Titans will probably win by a touchdown. Derrick Henry can make some good defenses look bad. I think he has a pretty good game. Tannehill just makes just enough plays, so I'm gonna go Titans.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one for me to pick because I was the one that picked the Colts to beat the Ravens last week. You and Isaiah stuck it out with the Ravens.
Yep.
So they let me down, and I kind of have hard feelings. But I think their secondary is that much better, and I think their secondary is going to force Tannehill to not make those just enough plays that he needs. Derrick Henry might have another game where he's running 25 times for 70 yards.
Yeah.
So I think that bodes for maybe 14 to 17 points for the Titans. And I think that the Colts can put up more than that against the Titans. So it's gonna be a close game, but I'd say like 24 to 17.
Okay.
Bills at Cardinals.
Yeah, this one's tough. I'm gonna go Bills though. I think this could be a shootout, which would be kind of fun to watch. Bills offense has started to find the groove again after having kind of right after they were really hot at the beginning of the year, and then they kind of ran into a little bit of a slump. And now they're starting to find their groove again. Josh Allen had a huge game last game. But I think Kyler Murray could certainly put up points for the Cardinals. So I think it's going to be probably a little bit of a shootout, but I think this game probably gets in the high 30s. So like 38-35, 38-31, something like that. I'll go Bills though.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you said. I think the Bills – I probably would have said the Cardinals last week if I didn't watch that Bills game. That offense is really coming together lately, and Josh Allen's been playing really well this year.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray's been playing really well too. I'm not going to discount him there. But I think the Bills have that opportunity to have the defense that we expected them preseason, where they haven't really showed that defense too much this year, but they've shown the offense to make up for what has looked like a mediocre defense this year. I think both are going to kind of come to play as best as they can against Kyler Murray, contain him enough. So I think, a really close game. Probably both at least have scored 28 points, I would think. But I'm gonna have the Bills squeak this one out too. Seahawks at Rams, NFC West.
Yeah. Oof. I never thought this would, before the season, if you'd asked me, this would have been a blowout.
I've been like, Seahawks.
Yeah. Never thought this would be considered a good game. Yeah, I'm still going to go Seahawks, though. They're a better football team. The Rams are going to cause some problems, I think, for Russell Wilson, at least early on. But he's just going to make enough plays. He'll scramble around back there. He's having an MVP-type season right now. So I think he makes enough plays. Seahawks by 10 points or so. I don't think the Rams – Seahawks defense isn't anything, like, special, but I don't think the –
Yeah, number 32.
And I don't think the Rams have quite enough on offense to really scare the Seahawks here into too much. So I'm gonna go Seahawks.
Yeah, bring back prime Todd Gurley and prime Brandon Cooks along with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp again. Maybe we have something against that secondary where we're putting up 35 points. Yeah, they're scoring 100 combined if they had that offense still. Yeah. I am going to go with the Seahawks in this game, though. And, again, it kind of goes back to us. I just don't believe the Rams are really as good as what they are record-wise. Defense has played well, and I think they're going to send the blitz against Wilson a couple times, but he's going to find the underneath guy to quick dump it off to, and they're going to find speed and space, and it's going to work out. So I think the Seahawks are going to win 14, 17 points. I think it's going to be a pretty substantial win. Okay. All right, Big Ten, Northwestern at Purdue.
Yeah, Northwestern's offense, their first game looked really good. And they kind of sputtered this last game that they played. I'll go Northwestern, though. I don't think Purdue's very good. You know if Rondale Moore's playing or not? Playing. But if he is, that kind of changes things a little bit, but I'm still going to go Northwestern. Northwestern's just a sound football team. Peyton Ramsey gives them a competent quarterback, which makes things a lot different for them, compared to last year. If they had better quarterback play last year, they would have been a lot better team. So I'll definitely go Northwestern in a pretty close game, though. I think both teams are pretty similar, talent-wise for sure. And Purdue's probably definitely going to make some plays. They usually have some interesting stuff they run on offense, but I'll definitely go Northwestern in this one.
Yeah, no, Purdue's got Rondale Moore. Looks like he's going to play, in David Bell, also wide receiver. They've got two really solid wide receivers. I just don't think Aiden O'Connell or Jack Plummer are quality enough quarterbacks to be defenses actually look pretty good too for Northwestern. Yep. They haven't been scrubby at all. And I think, Peyton Ramsey, just a more proven quarterback. Defense plays really well with Blake Gallagher in the middle of that defense. I think I'm also going to go Northwestern this game, but I think both teams probably under 24 points.
Okay.
All right, Western Michigan and Toledo, some action.
Yeah, some action. Action in Kalamazoo tomorrow. ESPN there. No. Toledo was picked to win the MAC. I watched a little bit of Western's game last week. Western has some talent. LB at quarterback is good. He's got a chance to be something. But I think I'm going to go Toledo in a high-scoring game. Toledo's just a little bit of a, they've just been tough the last few years. So I'll go Toledo in a high scoring game, somewhere probably like I'm gonna go like 42-35 or something like that, where a turnover probably makes a difference. The only interesting thing could be if it could rain tomorrow and it's gonna be pretty cold. So we'll see what happens with weather, but Western's at home, so that kind of gives them a little bit of an advantage. But there's no crowd, so
some kind of advantage, maybe.
Yeah, I mean they don't get to have to travel, so
they know that turf. They felt the turf on their toes. Yeah, I'm actually probably gonna say similar score to you, but I'm gonna run with Western. And like I said, I echo what you said again. Ellaby does look like a quality quarterback, and Sky Moore, wide receiver, Dwayne Eskridge, they've got some guys to throw to, and I don't see how even Jackson Kincaid at running back isn't able to help also in that against Toledo. Toledo's going to play him tough. That is a tough game to think about. Whenever I've watched Toledo, it seems like I always see a good game. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the home team. I'm gonna go Western Michigan.
All right, I like it. Go Broncos.
And then last one here, Oregon versus Washington State. They've only played one game so far. The Pack has not done anything, but they're both 1-0. Oregon's ranked at 11.
Yep. I'm gonna go Oregon. They impressed me. I watched a little bit of their game, their first game. They've got some talent. Tyler Show is their quarterback right now. He's super accurate. Their running back is really good. They're gonna put up some points. Washington State. I think Nick Rolovich is their head coach now. He came from Hawaii, so he's running run and shoot and air raid stuff still. So they'll probably definitely give that Oregon defense some problems early. Definitely throw the ball all over the place, but I think Oregon wins eventually. Kind of pulls away late. Definitely a better team. So Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon is a better team all the way around. You're looking at their depth chart. I recognize a lot of those names compared just when I was doing pre-NFL draft stuff for this next year. Yeah. I'm a Lions fan. I'm looking at NFL draft charts all the way in like October. So, Oregon's got some playmakers. Washington State's got a few, but I think overall this matchup bodes well for Oregon, and I'm going to run with the rank too. I'm going to pull rank on them. I think Oregon wins this game by 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to watch early. If I watch it, it's a late game.
Yeah, those late games on the
West Coast make it hard to watch, but I think it'll be a close game early, but Oregon definitely pulls away. So
yeah. So I'll get Isaiah's picks here before they start up on Saturday. But
should get his picks before tomorrow because that Western game is tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Good grief.
Action on Wednesday.
What are they doing on Wednesday? I didn't even.
Action.
That's right.
I rented a bunch of cars to the ESPN guys. And they came in yesterday. So
you're gonna meet all the famous people.
Yeah, I met Hondo Carpenter the other day. He writes for the NFL.
You didn't ask him to come on our podcast. It's just an opportunity squandered.
Frustrated because a tire blew on him. So
okay, so that's not a good time. You gotta read the body language.
Kind of a freak thing, but he writes for the NFL. He was doing a story on the Lions. He said I was asking him about it. Writes for Sports Illustrated. So, but he used to write for Spartan Nation. Big Michigan State guy. So
me, I can find that phone number in a heartbeat.
You could.
I don't know if I want that.
I technically could too if I looked up his contract, but I'm not going to do that.
That'd be less creepy. At least you'd have a reason.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Rental cars has a problem or something.
So we'll see you back next Tuesday, and we'll see what happens with these Michigan. See if Michigan can bounce back and the Lions can get their feet underneath them too.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens. But
all right, man. Well, take care.